Ryan said, there's not a lot of them. But I wanna point out the bullying ones first. And here was the issue, and it was helpful feedback, but if you all recall, the state law about bullying, David's law requires that you have a way for people to anonymously report concerns about bullying, right? Well, we've long had an anonymous tip line for people to support any kind of, safety issue. They think somebody has a gun, somebody has drugs, including somebody's picking on me. It's anonymous, we've had it for years, it's a Google Doc, and we've done that. Now, several years ago, maybe Lisa might remember this, people were using the anonymous tip line for safety concerns to get kids in trouble. Like the star volleyball player, hey, I'm gonna submit a picture anonymously that looks like she's drinking beer, but I'm not sure it is, and it became a big mess. And so, well, at that time we reasoned, the safety line's not meant to be that. And so we put verbiage saying, hey, when we're doing extracurricular code violations, we're not gonna take anonymous tips. You gotta be able to say, yeah, I am me and I'm reporting this, and it's gotta be first person verification. And so we did a big revamp then in 2016 maybe, I think, of the extracurricular code to make sure that our extracurricular code wasn't just an I gotcha, but it was like we had really good faith, evidence for reporting things, so that if a kid did get in trouble for drinking or drugs, that we did it in the right way. As part of that revamp though, we really clamped down on saying no anonymous tips for the extracurricular code. Flash forward to a few years ago when we added to our extracurricular code bullying as a violation. Right? Bullying and mistreatment, that's a violation, you have to stay up from football for 3 weeks or whatever. Or a week. First offense. Well, we didn't go back and say no anonymous tips except for bullying. And so it's come to my attention through work with the Davis Legacy Foundation that I don't know how many, but there were several parents that thought we were trying to discourage people from reporting bullying because we said in our curriculum code we don't want to hear about it because it was anonymous. That was confusing anyway. That's a long preamble to say that's the main thing that changed with regard to that. And you see the red line. And so really I simply inserted for that, except in the case of bullying,
Where does it say that?
Page 8.
Page 8? Oh, we were looking at page 3.
No, it's different.
Yeah, that's kind of the main one right there.
Is the anonymous complaint.
And so the other thing is on the web page where we do have the anonymous safety concerns, I added that language there too, except in the case of bullying. Right, so that's it. That's the force framework. Now, Ryan, is there a particular way you wanted to do the Supreme Court?
No.
Okay.
I mean, other than everyone understands what this, when we say the cheerleader case, what we're talking about. U.S. Supreme Court said you cannot punish a student who posted when she didn't make the cheerleading team, fuck school, fuck cheer, fuck softball or something.
You also can't say, oh, board meeting.
But I think what's important to know there is that particular opinion also had, and they discussed the contract, because one of the arguments the school district made was, well, this student agreed to curtail their stuff, and the Supreme Court said you can't contract away your free speech rights. So in light of that, you can look at the language, frankly, I don't think this would pass muster.
Yeah, I read it, Ryan, and that, I mean, you might as well not say anything, because that doesn't make any sense to me.
I'm
And
more
I'm not a
aligned
lawyer,
with
but
that.
I read contracts all the time.
I think you could put something, there is the argument to be made that you put something in there that is unenforceable, but kind of aspirational, like you'll never be able to enforce it, but maybe just by having it on paper, it reminds some kids to behave better. That's an argument I think you can make, but I don't think there's any way you can enforce this, and I think this kind of goes back to a debate we had long ago about should the school even be doing anything to police activity away from the school? And I think I voiced my opinion at the time, I think we're setting the school district up for failure. And so,
You mean as it relates to speech?
as it
Yeah.
relates
You don't
to
mean
speech,
freedom
yeah,
of
no,
speech.
well, alcohol is a whole different thing, cause that's state law. I mean, those consequences, that's kinda like the mask mandate, we can't do anything, so, no, this is just speech. My personal thought is, I think we ought to just get out of it altogether, because I think we can't enforce anything that we do. I wish we could.
Well, again, I think, I wanna clarify for everyone in the room, I'll tease out a few, so, our extracurricular code outlines a variety of violations that include, illegal activity, drinking, drugs, smoking,
Felony offenses.
felony offenses, whatever, right? So those kinds of things done outside of the school day, that you can have an extracurricular consequence, not a school consequence, but you can be held out from participating in your activity for a period of time, and we tiered out those consequences. So there's a list of those. Then we also have in there bullying outside of the school day. So the notion is that if you're doing something that we might not necessarily be able to punish you in school in ISS, but you're a member of the football team or band, and you are doing something, well, we don't want you to be doing that, and so we can have an extracurricular consequence, right? So that's the next level. And then the thing that we had in there that was, most closely related to speech was the thing about social media. And so, that's the thing that really bears the most from this case. And so I just wanna be clear when Ryan's talking about something, so let's tease it out. The guidance we got from our attorney and the changes in here are relative to speech and what came out of the Supreme Court case. And let me just stop there, cause we can get into the rest of it in a minute. And so, what's important to note is that, it's not obvious in this, but I'm gonna let you all know that. It's very clear to us that, absolutely right, we cannot be in the business of censoring speech outside of the school day, even if it's in an extracurricular event. That's abundantly clear. And the burden is gonna be on us as administrators not to pursue those. So, the changes he's recommending is not changes he thinks that is gonna allow us to keep doing that. These are changes that he thinks need to be made because of the case, so it's clearer to us and to folks that certain things are off limits for us. It's gonna be incumbent on me to support the administrators, is to say, when you do have an issue, we need to stop and think through this. So for example, and to see if it meets the standard, because the Supreme Court case still does allow stuff if it's a significant disruption to school. Part of the issue here is that they didn't prove that it disrupted anything. And so what we need to walk through is, and we will always contact our attorney if we get into this situation, if we had a case where an extracurricular participant was using speech that ended up creating a huge disruption of school, we would certainly investigate it, we would talk about it, and we would get counsel as to whether or not that's something that we could impose an extracurricular consequence on or not. And so, but we're pretty clear that there's a lot of stuff now, it's clear to us that are off limits, and that's clear to us, we shouldn't be pursuing things. But the add-ins are saying, well, in case we do have to pursue something in consultation with our attorney, this helps us to understand, maybe not what the line is, but kind of the direction you would have to go if you did that. So we know certain things are off limits, that's for sure. Now, that's one. The second thing, though, is in our FAQ, and this is the point Ryan made about having an extracurricular code at all, right? But how the heck do you tell kids that they can't drink outside of school? It's not your business. That's a thing we went through the last time we revised this, and in our previous FAQ down at the bottom,
Go back to that page. Oh, go ahead, I just wanna make sure we go back to that page,
Yeah.
so that's the question.
in our previous FAQ at the bottom, we had a question that said, how the heck can you even do this? You got no right or whatever. And so what we listed were 4 cases I think they're maybe district court, maybe some of them are TA commissioners, some are just local, Texas Supreme Court cases. They all uphold a school's ability to withhold something that's a privilege, not a right, right? So it's a right to go to school, it's not a right to be able to be on the football team or the dance team or the band. And so those all were in there to help illustrate that. Quite frankly, we don't know where it's gonna go, you know, so we just decided, rather than confuse everybody, we're just gonna take that part out, cause we don't know what new cases come down the list, and we certainly don't wanna be a test case. And so that's the other thing that we just took out, because, this ruling, while it's very clearly about speech, we don't know what's gonna come afterwards about other kinds of just extracurricular policing. And so, that's why we took that part out. I think that's all I need.
So, 2 points that I had was, one is that the reason that the attorney put this stuff in there was for, so we can actually document it, because if we affect the coach in their time, then we are affecting so then it is enforceable. But we kind of throw the whole oxymoron on page 8 that the only thing that we won't do is we won't use hearsay. Okay, so if someone says something, you know, the only way we're gonna be able to investigate it is through hearsay.
No, hearsay,
Well,
no.
but what I'm saying, it will be the, you know, yeah, she said that and that, you know, I mean, we don't, unless you have a recording of it.
Well, like, in this case, it was a social media post, so you were
Right.
looking at
Yeah,
the post.
well, no, yeah, that's not hearsay. I understand that, you're correct. But my point is that it's just gonna get ugly. You know, in my opinion, we don't need to police what people say out of this school.
And I think, kind of piggybacking on what Clay is saying, if you look at this language, and I'm not criticizing Rick for drafting this, cause this is a razor's edge of
Well,
trying
and
to.
this is the language all schools are using. Do you
That-
know what I mean? Like, that's
okay.
what, yeah. this is-
But they say, I mean, the language or the post that will be subject to punishment, including removal from the activity, can be something that represents the school or team in a negative light. That standard means nothing.
Mhm.
Plus, that's the exact thing that happened in the.
What
game.
page?
That's what I highlighted.
What
At
page?
school, at the cheerleading is as negative as you
Page
get, so we
7.
absolutely can't do it.
Right.
We can't regulate.
I mean, if a
Negative
kid,
light, F school,
yeah, if a
Yeah.
kid writes, Coach blank sucks, we can't.
Page 7, line 5, it says, their extracurricular would not engage in any conduct that would have a negative effect on other participants. Well, I mean, how in the world can you prove that?
Yeah, especially within a team.
Mhm.
I mean, I get if we wanna put this in and it's purely aspirational, but I don't want to spend a dime in court defending any punishment for a kid. Because that money we spend being a test case
Yeah.
will be multiple teachers' salaries.
Yeah, and so I totally did not, that's not the intent.
Yeah.
And so that's why I said at the very beginning, loud and clear, we as administrators know what's off limits, and if we don't know, we're gonna call the attorney and talk through it. This was not trying to give us cover to continue to do stuff we shouldn't do. It was just trying to say, the case was essentially about effects, and so we need to just put effects in there. We're not looking for a way to do it, we're just trying to give ourselves guide rails about what's appropriate, what's not to be pursued. So loud and clear, absolutely, I agree with you 100%. I don't think that this language disagrees with that.
are the coaches wanting, I mean, what's the drive for this? What, you know, I mean, obviously we
When you
already
say
had.
this, what do you mean?
Well, so we already had a version.
I think it started right here.
Well, hold on, no, because we already had this paragraph
Oh, yeah.
that's struck
Yeah.
through. So I know we had it, and then obviously now we're expanding it, and I know that the drive to revising it is because of the Supreme Court case, but what is the drive for wanting a policy like this in the first place? Is that you guys that are wanting it,
No,
because it helps
yes.
you, is it the coaches, what is
The
it?
origins of it was, the coaches said, well, there's two things. One, essentially, yeah, they wanted police speech. And they felt they could.
Police speech?
Yeah, I mean, to point it in a stark, they felt, golly, if I'm the cheer coach I don't want my kids doing silly things on the internet
That reflects negativity.
because it reflects negatively on my team. Now,
There's,
now, that's, quite frankly, that's the mindset they were operating under, and for years, that's what they wanted to do. And so that's kind of the initial glow. But the second thing, motivating factor was, bullying, and at the time, social media was really exploding when the last time we revised this, and we were like freaking out, because kids were doing all kinds of stuff on social media, and we didn't quite know how to handle it. And it was stuff that most people, well, it's hard because the Supreme Court case does a good job of pointing out that as parents, there might be lots of things that kids say that we think we should go to Riddim and say, you should let that kid play. But as the Supreme Court points out, is they have the right to do that. And so when we wrote.
The kids have the right to have the speech, is that what you're saying?
Yeah,
Their speech.
but that's, in reading it, I was like, yeah, that's right, but in the world I live in, I would bet a lot of people that complain to me about things that kids do outside of school are very basically saying, please, censor this kid's right to speech. I mean, you know, and it's hard to say, cause you're right, I agree they shouldn't be saying that, that's horrible, we'll talk to them about it. But you can't, you shouldn't really do something about that though. Now, but my point is that, there was enough egregious, abuse of social media in terms of picking on kids and saying things they shouldn't say. That's how so it's the reason why I was in there was two reasons. One, it was quite frankly to police speech, but two, it was quite frankly a concern that harm was going on and we didn't quite know. We figured we had to do something about it, and so that way it was put in there.
and now we have state law on bullying that defines what bullying conduct is, what
Yeah.
bullying communications are. So we can tie into that in the extracurricular code, because that is, by state law, we're required to police that.
Can I ask one question? Is there any way, since we have.
But by the way, so just to be clear, that was already in there, this is just changes.
Yeah,
Yeah, so in our version on paper, you gave us the struck through.
Yeah.
It's not
the red
there.
lines.
When it's printed out on Windows, it does that.
You give us
On
that, yeah,
Mac,
I
it
see
does
it here.
Good.
So, and I don't know all this, I just hear this and that, I know what it is like in the cheer program. If the students and parents go through all this minutia and sign away, can this not be it? What, I mean, we have cheer contracts, we have football contracts, we have all these other contracts. And I would like to see in here that all other contracts don't mean anything. This is the code.
So at the time when we had the conversation, we had this conversation at the time when we revised it. And the request from the sponsors, not all I guess, but the ones who had constitutions, was to say, well,
Specifically cheer and dance.
yes, I have very specific things that don't conflict with this, but maybe are a little bit more strenuous, they're more kind of geared to my program, they're things that I require, and I have my own demerit system and all that kind of stuff. Like, I really need that to have the program be excellent the way it's been. And so they're like, we want to be able to do that, and quite frankly, we will never conflict with this. We know that if this ever is in conflict, that this prevails. But there are just too many specific things that I know cheer and dance is specific, I don't know of any other ones that, those don't come to the top.
I mean, it's addressed on number 2 and 3 here, it addresses those clauses. I mean, it does the opposite of what you're saying, it says, basically, we will honor those.
And we can dig into extracurricular code, we can put the contract, I mean, the separate contracts in front of y'all and kind of do a learning piece about where we sit right now. Site-based goes through this annually, they look at it, they have conversations
Well,
about
when we
it.
need
You
to, we
guys
don't
review
do it
as
as we don't do it every year.
We were for a while revisiting.
Yeah,
and-
once, yeah, we
Okay.
handed it.
So where we are is this language right here.
Uh-huh.
What is your recommendation moving forward with this language? You want it deleted?
It sounds like-
You're like,
I would delete it because I think it's meaningless, but if everyone said, or if you told me, you know what, it's important to me as an aspirational thing, but I'll tell you,
like
my,
if this dissuades kids posting nudes of themselves, like let's keep it in.
That's not-
Hey, that's it, that was actually an example.
No,
Right.
yeah, but
If-
again, we can't hang our hat on it, we cannot punish for it, like.
but I want it really clear that I'll be really upset if y'all come in here or we end up with a grievance because y'all enforced something without telling us, and suddenly we're in litigation over this.
Mhm.
Cause I don't even like you know, when you say, look, we as administrators, we know where the lines are drawn. Wherever those lines are, ought to be really clear from our policy or our written stuff, so that you know where it is,
We know.
Joe Mama knows, you know, parent knows where it is, everyone knows.
So-
And that's the only reason I wouldn't
Yeah.
put something, but I also get the idea, anything we can do
Right.
to encourage our kids to be better, I'm a fan of.
But the
So-
problem
so
is, once this policy's here, it's not like Ryan or even Dana and Frank are gonna have an opportunity to review every time a coach is maybe
Right.
extending or abusing the right to use this to hold it over a kid's head over, especially, I mean, honestly, free speech exists so that you can criticize the government. And so when it says, you know, if you're saying negative things about the organization of the school, I mean, that's the exact thing you need to be able to do. Kids need to be able to say, my school's not doing a good job, my school has bad test scores, my cheerleading team isn't good enough. And so, once the policy exists, the coaches are not gonna be reviewing with the lawyers what they're telling these kids
You know,
they
there's
can't
two
say.
points of
I mean,
clarification. One, the coach never, does this by themselves.
Yeah.
The coaches are supposed to report to an administrator, and the administrator makes sure that it meets the criteria or doesn't. The
I mean,
coach's job is to report it.
Ideally, I see what you're saying, if it's getting to that level of discipline.
Yeah, if they're
But
gonna
it's
enforce it,
on a
but,
daily basis,
they can
the
just wave it in
coaches
your
are,
face.
I mean, they're saying things to these kids, we're not supervising.
well, how about this,
everything.
and, cause we're way over time. Ryan, I'm gonna rephrase what I said, cause that's not what I meant. We know that there is a line, we might not know what it is. That's what I meant to say. Like administrators, we're clear, like, we're scared of speech now, we don't wanna do, like, we get it. We're not gonna try to police speech. I don't need to say that we're experts yet, and this conversation makes me go back to Rick and I say, I wanna fix this.
Okay.
I mean, you don't need to direct me to do it, but I feel like we need some clarity.
Let's pull out and look at it, and another thing, just, and maybe have them look at, think about this, these contracts.
Yeah.
Cause I also don't wanna get in a situation again, that incident with the cheerleaders, we hung our hats because we were told this cheer contract, that forbade it, that's why these cheerleaders would be punished. When members of the community who were appropriately outraged, we assured them, don't worry, there'll be consequences, it's all under the contract. And then 2 months later, that was pulled out from under us because the coach wouldn't support her contract anymore. I think, we need, it's an
Well,
issue we need to look at,
so
let's look at all.
So we need the
Well,
contract.
yeah, so I wanna, so school starts on the 16th. And so it would be helpful if we had the final version by the time school started.
Yes.
Okay, so that's number one. I appreciate your global concerns that existed prior to, the Supreme Court change and my building changes. I would ask for prioritization of the speech change. So that is, if I can just get the speech change, because I do wanna say that, in their latest incident, I just wanna be able to get this done in time, and I feel like I don't want the perfect to be the enemy of the good, or whatever, how
Well,
to say.
my only thing is that this is used not for, you know, this is, a good lawyer on the defense is going to use this as evidence that the parent and the child agreed, period. Right?
Yeah.
And so, we're giving them the ammunition.
Mhm.
That's all I think anybody's trying to say.
You're giving who the ammunition?
You're giving the defense.
Well, we would
We
be,
would be
I mean,
defense.
not the.
With regard to speech.
someone's.
With regard to speech.
Yeah, that's what I wanna clear up. If you can just give me a narrow directive to clear up speech, that's all I'm
That's
asking.
fine.
And I feel like that's the new thing that this conversation has told me it's pretty hazy.
So, to move it forward, can we pull it, it sits in consent right now, so let's draft it, get it in front of you guys and pull it out of consent for Thursday night. We have meetings next week where we could do that, right? We have a regular board meeting next Thursday.
The
Oh,
morning
so
meetings
it's
aren't till the
before.
next 2 weeks, right?
Yeah.
And can we also find out how many other contracts we have running around the school?
We'll do that during the school year.
Yeah.
We'll try and focus on getting,
Yeah, I'm with
you
Frank.
need your code for the start of the school year.
And I need to give clarity to coaches, like I haven't even talked to coaches yet about this issue.
All right, moving on
Good feedback.
to budget committee.